All right, we're good to go?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let me make sure. Welcome, everyone. We're to Equity in Action. Don't just talk about it, be about it. And if you will, please, for relational purposes, if you are able to unmute your camera, please do so and participate with us. We like to speak with faces, so thank you so much. And if it will compromise your internet connection, we understand that. But if you're able to unmute your camera, please do. Thank you. Welcome, and Ginger and I are going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, I'm Dr. Sharon Knight. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of DSK Culturally Responsive Educational Services. I've been in the field of education for over 40 years. I love what I do and really would not want to be anywhere else. And ultimately, my goal is to support people, human service professionals, in their journey towards realizing their aspirations, personal and professional. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. And the same as Dr. Knight, welcome to our section. And it's our pleasure to talk with you this afternoon. My name is Ginger Kwan. I am the Executive Director of Open Doors for Multicultural Families. But most importantly, I am a parent. My husband and I, we raised 3 children. They are now all adults. My son, Miko Kwan, who has autism, is the one who brought me to the developmental disability field. And that kind of started my career and my life journey as an advocate and a parent, and also now the Executive Director of Open Doors for Multicultural Families.
Absolutely.
And I will started to introduce Open Doors for Multicultural Families. This is the organization founded in 2009 at my home, at my kitchen table, among with many people who are passionate about serving people with developmental or intellectual disabilities, particularly come from linguistically, culturally diverse backgrounds. And fast forward in the past 12 years, we have come together to do a lot of things to grow our programs to serve the underserved population. And our population that we focus to serve has this dual identity in terms of disabilities, like intellectual disabilities or developmental disabilities. And then on top of that, they usually have the other ethnic identity or cultural identity. And so this is a very narrow and specialized population we serve. And how we serve them is through this cultural brokerage model that I'll tell you a little bit more. And through this cultural brokerage model to help the families and the individuals who have disabilities we served to navigate a system and provide a specialized programming. And also we use their voice and we work with them together to lift up their voices for system changes. And so that's what we do. And cultural brokerage model, simply put, is that we hire people who speak the same language as the people who we are going to serve and share similar cultural backgrounds. So it's easier for families or individuals who come to us when they have a cultural and language challenges or barriers when in terms of accessing services, and they are able to get connected with our staff who speak the language and understand where they're coming from, and in terms of their cultural practices, their cultural norms, all those kind of things. And Open Doors, we operated by our mission, we operated by a set of values, and these values are our guiding principles and how we practice this. And these values, they're quite a lot. Actually, we have 17 values, throughout the years, we come together to realize that, and including like inclusion, all abilities, diversity, equity, social justice. and families, particularly family engagement and family-driven program and services. And also like we value highly on team and partnerships and collaboration in terms of how we internally or externally communicating with others. We also, highly value our cross-cultural communication and cultural reciprocity, and to take care of ourselves in order for us to help others. Self-care and integrity is also a huge part of our values we all want to practice. And if you ever got a chance to come to Open Doors during the face-to-face time, you will know that we always have food for you. So that's part of our hospitality as well. Okay, next slide. And in the past 12 years, we started with only one person. That was me as the volunteer executive director. Till now, we have actually have grown dramatically. We now have about 50 staff, and altogether we speak about 27 different languages. And we are located in Kent as our main office, but also have two satellites offices in Redmond and also in New Holly campus. And last year, we have served more than 2,000 individuals who came to us. A lot of families who needs help last year, particularly for the rental assistance, food, all kinds of access to different kind of resources. We kind of shift our services to meet their needs because based on our value is family-driven program and services. Next slides, please. However, overall, Open Doors for Multicultural Families, we use our guiding principles, which is that we live, practice our mission, vision, and values, and also guided by the family's needs, the community needs. So it's always community-driven, family-driven program and services. And we build a relationship with individuals who come to us because developmental disabilities is a long-term issue. A lot of families who we have served, that they will always come back to us. It's not just like a transactional services or relationship that we have with them. Give you one example. When I first started to work in the developmental disability field, I was serving families directly. And till now, like 20 years later, some of the families who I met during that time still in contact with me. And from time to time, they will call me just, hey, Ginger, there's something going on. Can you tell me what, where I can get my services or where I can access my my rights to advocate for my sons or daughters. So things like that happens all the time. And that really practiced through our services at Open Doors for Multicultural Families. And because of the developmental disability is a lifespan issue. So we also use lifespan approach to develop our programs. For example, we started with family support, and that will be one-on-one helping family to navigate the system and connect them to resources that they needed and help them to apply for the services, because many of them, they might not even have the language proficiency in their own language besides English. And so many of our staff, very often they sit down to fill out a form with the families and walk through the steps with them and also explain it to them. So this family support services is very individualized. Family come to us, we find out what their needs are, and based on their needs, we started to access the service and work with them to get that. And we also started young as well. And with Best Start for Kids funding, we were able to get many different kind of programs to set up, including the early learning. We are doing the developmental screening. We are able to partner with early intervention organizations to work together. For example, CTC, the Children Therapy Center in Kent, we were able to collaborate together to increase each other's capacity so we can better provide services to families. At this point, the pilot focus on Somali families, Vietnamese families, etc., like that. And then we also have a youth program and adult program. So it's a lifespan, not only focus on the individuals who have developmental disabilities, but also their families, because we know families, the unit of family is really broad. When we work with ethnic diverse community, is not the same as the mainstream definition very often is thinking about a nuclear family, only the parents and the children. So the families we serve actually expanded out to maybe their uncle, their aunt, or even their community leaders who care about these individuals. And throughout the years, we also learned that if we only focus on direct services, the system continue to have a barriers that we are not able to help the families. So that's why we also have a civic engagement advocacy training programs to help individuals whose voices often are not heard, and lift up their voices to the decision-making to the decision makers through their own stories. And so we train and we provide learning opportunities for these individuals we serve. Okay, next slide. That will be Dr. Knight.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Ginger shared, the capacity of ODMF, Open Doors for Multicultural Families, is phenomenal. And how I came into knowing the organization was through BSK funding in regards to capacity building. And part of that funding started out with, or that my connection started out with, the early learning program, where we had to develop a racial equity theory of change and action plans around addressing racial equity within the program. And so what came out of that and what made it possible for me to be where I am today with Open Doors, I'm now 2 years in. One of the biggest things was BSK equity-driven approach to funding. The program manager, Melanie, I can't remember Melanie's last name right now, but she, yes, Melanie Moultrie made it possible for us to flex the BSK fundings through Rainier Valley communities, Rainier Valley
Corp, yeah.
Corps, made it possible for that funding to channel through ODMF, and they still be able to contract with me and keep me there for continued work from an equity-driven approach as well as a culturally responsive approach. And that's how we've been able to continue to work and strive towards realizing racial equity. And so this is a big impetus around don't just talk about it, be about it, to do it. And what enabled us to get to this point, we want to share this code.
That's your gift, right? You have a drawing for the gift, so remember this.
Yes, so this is the code for the summit, a gift that you're supposed to be receiving through the summit. And so what did we do after Melanie and Rainier Valley Corps made it possible for the relationship to be sustained between Open Doors and my organization? And so that's what I'm going to share a little bit about now. What we had done was we had taken a strategic approach. Is that our goal right from the start was to integrate an equity-driven approach to programming and service delivery. We wanted it all the way through before people came through the door, all the way to when people exited. And so what we had to do was work with the executive team first, the management team, to get all management on board. Yes. Okay. All management on board. And then once we worked with the executive level team, which included Ginger as well, we moved to all staff. We started working with all staff. We wanted everybody to be on the same page as we took this journey. And then after we worked with all staff, we worked with the board of directors, and we'll share, like some people say, and then we move. Then after we work with we're in progress now with working with the board of directors, and then we're moving in with community. And so people might say, well, why didn't you have community involved in through the whole process? Community is involved through the whole process because a lot of ODMF members, organizational members are part of the community. A lot of the board members are part of the community. A lot of the stakeholders that we've been working with are part of the community. And the program participants that are served was part of the community. So the community was in there in generally throughout the whole thing. And then now, after we fine tune the relationship with board members and all staff, then we're going to intentionally move out further to community outside of the doors of ODMF, for lack of a better way of saying it. And okay, why did we do it the way that we had done it? Is that we wanted to build an equity-driven foundation, get everyone on the same page. We wanted long-term commitment and a lasting positive impact. Ginger expressed right from the beginning, we want to transform the ODMF culture. And within 2 years, you can guarantee that's what was done. Ginger and her program, her staff, everyone, they had already had the some pieces of the foundation there that was working exceptionally well. And when I came in to support them, I came in to help fine tune where they already was. I met Open Doors where they were at. And because, again, of BSK funding and the flexibility of it, we were able to move Open Doors in a direction and at a pace that was conducive to transformation. And we'll talk about that. And then if anything rings true to this third statement, is that it was important to have an unwavering commitment and to be true to the community that we serve. That was critical. And again, that was emphasized throughout this whole thing. And so any staff that came on board, any board members, any community persons, any volunteers, anyone who came through that door of Open Doors, they knew that the commitment was to be unwavering to the program participants that were served and the community. And then what was important was that we also, our movement was culturally responsive. And that was, and when we share culturally responsive, it was movement based on where ODMF's capacity, the staff persons who were there now and where they were at in their journey around race, racism, social justice, organizational development, and then in regards to their capacity, their emotional, physical, social, their whole being to be able to handle what we were about to go through, to be ready for what we were about to go through with this whole transformation. And then part of that responsiveness was, again, meeting the staff and the organizational members and all who supported them at their current level of performance, where they were at. So I knew right from the start that I couldn't come in there and say to the ODMF team that we're going to do this, this. That equity means this. I had to come in and do assessments and determine where team members were and so forth. And we'll talk about this, but this is what we had done. And Ginger, did you want to add on anything? I didn't ask on the last slide, and my apologies.
Here I want to share why we want to do it and why we need to do it. And give some background at that time, like almost 2.5 years ago, right? About that time, when I first met Dr. Knight, we were in the kind of, if you think about the life cycle of a nonprofit, and we started 2009, and we started to grow. In after 2 to 3 years, we got a first grant from the federal government, and by the time we met Dr. Knight, we probably is about 20 plus staff during that time, if I'm if I remember it correctly. And so we actually are going into like a what we so called a teenage, if you want to say teenager, right? We are, as a life cycle for a nonprofit, we are a teenager at that time. So that means we are full of energy. And we have a lot of things going on. We do very well providing service directly to many families and many youth as well. And we also have a very diverse organization in terms of our staffing. But at that time, it also shows a lot of like a lack of the structure, lack of the staff capacity to have the foundation. Really, what I see is the foundation was not set very well. And majorly, as an ED, I am part of it, because many of us who come to the nonprofit sector is not because, hey, I know this is my life calling. I want to come in here. And I come in to volunteer myself as an ED to start an organization. And I didn't go through college to get the degree for nonprofit management. So there are a lot of things I didn't know. And same thing for many staff that we have. We all have passions. We want to serve. But in terms of how the organization need to be structured well, the foundation we need to lay in order for us to continue to make progress. And that was very important. And I think this will not be a surprise to many EDs or any management. We tend to have less managers or the executive team to support a staff, but have more staff to serve, because too often the grant we got only were able to support the direct service staff. So you can see that during the time we were growing, and yet we had challenges to communicate well among our team. We didn't have enough structure that set a clear guidelines or to help the staff to work together to be more efficient. And on top of that, this organization has been growing for 10 years. And also it's about time that we come back to revisit where we are, why we started our business. So all this kind of things, kind of just a perfect storm, if you want to say that. And for me as an ED, I have to think about, if we want to walk fast, then I will walk alone. However, I know this is a collective effort. So since we want to walk far, that means I also have to commit my time and to work with people who knows the business better and how to guide us together. And so Dr. Knight was a perfect person that we were able to work with based on what our needs at that time, and to address issues step by step.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ginger. And then, so what we did, we shared why we did it. What we had done was that I consulted. I did a lot of consultation with Ginger and the executive team. We engaged in a lot of critical conversations amongst the staff, and now with board included, and training. We had all staff training. And I think in the first year, it was almost monthly, and now it's quarterly. It's quarterly now. And so as capacity had grown and skills increased, we reduced the amount of training that I had came in to do. And then there was a coaching, a lot of coaching, one-on-one coaching, and then team coaching. And a lot of the one-on-ones, the thing that, and we'll talk about this again with success. What Ginger enabled to happen was she gave me access to each and every person in the organization, unlimited access, that if they had any questions, any concerns, they needed support or coaching, and the access was confidential. It didn't have to go beyond that person. And so that really, really made it an environment in which people could be vulnerable and share and really help the organization develop trust and grow. And so that coaching and on top of the one-on-one meetings, there were coachings of the managers. We had to do boot camps. Like Ginger was talking about, the structure, fundamental practices, because a lot of the over 10 years, this organization is growing, starting from Ginger's guidance, and you had several managers that were committed for their own reasons, personal and professional, and several may not have had the foundational experience or education for leading and managing. And so there was a lot of coaching, a lot of training that really helped to develop the managers, and what a difference today makes, just from 2 years ago. And one of the biggest, well, we'll go into that with challenges. And then we've done retreats where we bring everyone together, and the retreats were a combination of work and feel good activity, self-care activity. We had a lot of fun at the retreats. Even though it was a lot of work, we did a lot of learning, and we had a lot of fun. It's just the best way that I could describe this. This is, and I'm not just saying this, I've said it over and over with ODMF in all my career. In my whole career, this is one of the best organizations that I've ever been inside of and supported. It is really equity and race and social justice being realized. And in addition to it being realized is the investment and the commitment to program participants and the families in the community. No one's being made to do this. People are there because they want to do it. And that's what makes the difference here, is that we've set up the structure to where we are only bringing in people who want to do this right from the start. We don't want the battle of having to make something happen. And so the last thing that we had done was strategic planning. And the strategic planning wasn't just management, executive level management, it was the whole organization. Everybody engaged in it, so that there was an understanding, there was a collective buy-in, and there was collective support with moving through it. And so this is like, when you look at organizational management and all the best practices that are associated with it, ODMF integrated all of that. And so this is what made it one of the things that these strategies and what we had done made it successful. And I saw a question. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
The question is, what were some of the training topics that the staff found most valuable?
So we did a lot around the mission, the vision, and the values, and what, not just it being in what do you call it, in word. How many values are there, Ginger?
17.
Okay, so imagine 17 values. During training sessions, we went through what each of those values meant and how they were realized in practice. And talk about a game changer. Talk about where people like, oh, now I get it. Oh, now it's internalized. Oh, now they're actually living out, playing out that value. That was one thing that was a huge training topic that employees found, organizational members found extremely beneficial, and it transformed their practice. It transformed their practice.
And Dr. Knight, the other
Yes.
one we know that was very helpful are all the tools you provided to us.
Yes.
And also a lot of challenging questions through dialogue in the team when you come to do the training. Like we have those all-day training sections that we were able to, form into small group and talk about it. And then everyone for each group actually also can provide a feedback on how we are going to practice continuously.
Yeah.
That leads to, for example, the weekly staff meeting. We always started with our values, talking about in this past week, in what way you did is aligned, your behavior is aligned with the values, and what are the impact once you do that. And also, for example, the cultural reciprocity or cross-cultural communication, we also building into our agenda, allow the staff to share their cultural experiences and talking to each other. And the most recent one I want to share, kind of funny, is the question was, in your culture, what is something kind of weird to you, or something weird that you want to share? And one of our staff said, I never realized, because she is considered herself as a minority because she's white. Quite interesting to say that. And she said that I never realized it's weird until I joined Open Doors, is when my family go out to have like a family gathering, and we have like 25 people come to the park. We drove a long way from Washington to Oregon, and we all brought our own food, and we sat down to eat our own food, and we didn't share. And that was totally different from when I came to Open Doors, and I found that everybody was sharing the food, and people will get your food. Hey, you wanted this, you want to eat that. And so that was kind of fun cultural sharing, help each other to build a relationship, but also understand each other's culture in many ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the other trainings that was really helpful, there were two others to add on what Ginger was saying, the trainings around equity, what it actually is, and how is it realized in practice. And there were some struggles around it because of the idea of, like, when you have so many families that need, and their varying needs, how can you be equitable? And we worked through that and worked through that and worked through that. And that really help. And then the boot camp for the managers. When we had the boot camp, which was a week-long, all-day training for managers to go through the fundamentals of being a manager. And let me tell you that, and you'll see this with the successes. I get so excited about speaking about it because it was literally transformative. With how staff worked together after this boot camp, how they approached their work, the trust, the cohesion, and all of that was what made it successful. So the boot camp, equity, sharing the training on equity, and then the vision, mission, the values, and the tagline, and then what was the other one I was going to say? I lost my thought. But yeah, I mean, those really worked with staff. And then the way we had done it, and let me go down here. Oops, I'm sorry. Ginger, you want me to speak to this, or you want me to, you want to speak? I'm okay either way.
There are a couple of comments here. Maybe you see if you want to answer there or say something. So the first comment is that from Nicole. I would love to hear how you brought all staff into the strategic planning process.
Okay. Okay. So as shared, we started where everyone was at. And then we also started from where we wanted to build that foundation, which was using the vision, the mission, the values, and the tagline. And by starting there, we talked about collective responsibility, professional accountability. We talked about what does that look like in Open Doors, and how do we live it out? There's a triangle that I shared. So when Ginger was talking about tools, I shared this triangle, and it's about professional accountability. And at the base of that triangle It's people, policies, and practices. And one of the things that the organizational leaders, Ginger and her executive team, really embraces and really practices is inclusion. Okay, inclusion right from the start. It isn't that the managers have all the answers. It isn't that the executive team have all the answers. It's the whole organization. All the members within it have the answers. And so when you start from that base, like even though there's a hierarchical uh what do you call it, on paper structure, so to speak, when it comes to practice, it's an integrated approach. And that's how we were able to get staff to the the um, the strategic planning process. And
Yeah.
when we go ahead, Ginger, you want to add?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing is that really Dr. Nye help us to lay the foundation, at least to kind of relieve some of their like their doubt or
Mhm.
their skepticism, because in the previous thing, in the previous time, maybe there's some, you know, unresolved conversation or something happens, right?
Mhm.
We see that before, what we so call some kind of toxic environment, right? People will
Right.
talk about it behind you and they are not willing to talk with you in front of everybody or something like that. And but Dr. Nye helped to resolve those issues first through the training, through the individual consultation, through some of the coaching. And then after that, we are, because now people know that, oh, okay, if I say something, I will not be retaliated, even though
Mhm.
that was not a case, but in their mind, they worry about that, right? And
Yeah.
so there are a lot of things that we lay the foundation first, so people feel like, hey, they can talk about it. And once people feel like their voices are heard, their ideas matters, their thoughts are taken into consideration, and also they see managers receive a training, learning how to work with them better, listen to them. So as
Mhm.
a result, once we go into the strategic planning section, people are on the same page, or at
Mhm.
least the people have a similar belief and they bought into this process. We want to do it. So that's
Absolutely.
how the strategic planning process actually becomes much smoother once we have that foundation laid, like we are on the same page, that kind of
Absolutely.
situation. And then if you
Absolutely.
want to say some more, then we can also have the next comments here. I can say after you are done.
Yeah, absolutely. Ginger, the one of the strategies that got us through beginning early challenging times with cross-cultural interactions or yeah, cross-cultural, whether it be role, whether it be race, gender, whatever it is that I shared this acronym which has become a tool within the organization. It's called VIP, that every person is a very important person. And so when you take that acronym, that every person is a very important person, that means that we're investing in taking a moment by asking them when they come and they have a challenge. So we had to turn stuff around from gossip and what appeared like a constant complaint, da 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 da, to a constructive way to express concerns. So VIP, very important person, also meant when you come to me with a concern, do you want to vent? Do you want to invite me in for a conversation, a dialogue, and you come up with your own um, thoughts and suggestions? And or do you want me to support you in problem solving with ideas? So that took away all the gossip. That took away um, all the, like Ginger was saying, any type of backstabbing or unprofessional behavior. It flipped it around as a tool to where people said, hey, I need to vent, or yeah, I'd like to invite you in a conversation so I could uh, think of some ways to solve this matter that I have. And then, yeah, I need you to help me problem solve and brainstorm some different things that I could do and use and to help me follow up with this. And oh my goodness, again, I'm on the edge of my seat because of the excitement of how this moved through the organization. That was one of the tools. Yeah, Ginger?
Yeah, and the next comments from Kiki is this question can come later, but I worked at the primarily white institute. Would any will any part of this process be different if the majority of the staff was white?
The thing you want to comment, Ginger, or you want me to go ahead?
From my perspective, I think it's a leadership commitment to begin with. If the leadership is willing to make a commitment and in terms of investing their time, energy, and also the resources, but on top of that is be the role model, really do something about it and show it in every way, in any way that you are investing in this. And so people will know you are serious about this.
Absolutely.
And you have to really practice yourself. And if a leader is willing to humble themselves to say, well, I don't know much about this, would you teach me? And I know this is important. If this is our value, organizational values, we want to practice that. I think the process could be different because that depends on where you are, right? Again, we are no different. You know, we have our struggle. We are good with something, but there are a lot of things we have to learn as well. And so every organization, it depends on where they are. And if they have the commitment, I think the process may be similar, but how to get to the places, it depends on where each organizations are at the moment time.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that that was the biggest thing is that when Ginger invited me in and shared that I'd like to keep you and go further, is that she embraced the fact that my degree was in organizational management and leadership. And I've taken that degree and put race and social justice as the lens in which I traveled through that. So a lot of what I had done was basic organizational best practices. And Ginger welcomed that, her and her team welcomed that, enabled me to guide the organization through this process. And so would it look any different for a white organization versus Ginger's, the ODMF organization, which is extremely ethnically, linguistically, and racially diverse? One of the differences is just like what Ginger just shared. One of the biggest differences is the commitment to realize racial equity. If there is a commitment to realize it, the organization isn't going to continue to be all white. You see, the organization isn't going to continue, if it does, to speak all English. It's not going to be continued that way. And so that's what realizing racial equity is about. And similar, you know, Ginger can share. We talked about, even though it's a diverse, ethnically, racially, and linguistically diverse organization, we still kept at the table. Who's missing? Who's missing? We still kept asking ourselves that question. And we found out that there were several populations of families that we may not even be getting to because that ethnic racial group may be missing from our population. And so as a result, I shared in a conversation I shared with Ginger, I said, did you think about this? And before I knew it, those persons were at the table, those who were missing. And so that's what we're talking about with commitment. The thing that makes the difference, as Ginger shared, is the degree of people's responsiveness and readiness to embrace the opportunities that sit there. And so again, we go back, Ginger made the organization under Ginger's guidance, made the financial and the time investment, is that we knew this was not a quick fix. We knew that this wasn't going to be something that would just take 2 or 3 months and we say that we're done. I'm going into 3 years with them right now, 3 years. And it's a transformative practice. And then again, the flexible funding with BSK and Rainier Valley, which was supposed to be the next organization to come in and support Ginger. But because we were working so well and we didn't want to disrupt the continuity and the cohesiveness and the momentum that we were on, Rainier Valley was gracious enough to say, you know what, we're going to funnel the funding straight to Open Doors. And then Open Doors can contract with my business. And then the strategies that we used was we linked to Open Doors vision, mission, values, and tagline. When you take a chance and you get an opportunity to look at Open Doors vision, mission, values, and tagline, and the tagline, equity in action. And the vision is that persons with culturally and persons with developmental and intellectual disabilities, they're at the table designing the community of their own design, and then the mission is, help me out, Ginger. Help
We
me out.
partner and engage.
Yes,
those are
absolutely.
2 keys. And then we definitely engage those people who we serve and we partner with them. And then we use our cultural brokerage model as the way how we navigate the systems and how we also design the spatial programs, and also we advocate for the system change. And really, it was very clearly laid out. People knows exactly what they are doing are aligned with our mission, vision, and value. Really, they feel like it's equity in action. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was the biggest thing, because Open Doors was committed to realizing racial equity, was committed to engaging program participants, was committed to upholding all the values that were in place. That just led the way to where it is today. And we did an intentional pathway. We had to start with leadership first. We had to get leadership buy-in. Then we had to get all the staff buy-in, and we had to get the board. We had to build relationship between board and staff. And to share with you, the first board meeting and staff board meeting was so uncomfortable and so tense that we had to work through that. And now, oh my goodness, a different place, a very different place. Now there's board and staff collaborating together. So when we do go out further in community, we're going out on a united front, and therefore able to have a much higher impact. Did you want to share, Ginger, start off with this, or you want me to? I'm okay.
Yeah, you can continue. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so we're talking about how the question came up, how did we get staff to the strategic planning process? And how did this cycle, how did it work? And this is exactly what it was a cycle. And so what we had done, when I had done the trainings, when I had done any type of professional development, we introduced concepts and theories so that everyone was on the same page, no matter what it was, no matter what I was speaking on in the organization, everybody knew about it. Even to the point of now where the Zoom trainings are recorded, and people who come in, new people, have access to it. And then once the trainings were done, or any type of professional development was done, we engaged in critical conversation. I mean, critical, taxing, emotional, lots of tears and healing and all of those different things, types of conversations. And then after that, we practice over and over and over until whatever was being shared was internalized understood, and then showed up in practice. And then the biggest thing here, one of the things that made it so successful was that again, um, Ginger and her team made it possible for the organizational members to have support from the new employee that walked through that door up to the board members, the governing board members that oversee the organization. And this is what has made it successful in our capacity to build capacity. And then we just kept doing the same cycle over and over and over. Same cycle. You wanted to add anything, Ginger?
Nope.
Okay. And then what happened as a result of the way we had done it was that we created a culture of caring. People were able to be vulnerable. As shared earlier, we had one-on-ones and all had confidential access to me. We had to build team trust through conversations with the executive team because it was tense. It was tense. And we had done a leadership assessment, a team assessment. And one of the biggest issues that came up on the team assessment was trust. So we had to work through that. And then I mediated emotionally challenging conversations. And again, where people were crying, people were angry or frustrated or upset, not knowing what to do, they allowed the space for that to happen. And then I facilitated team building conversations with staff and management, with Ginger and management, the ED, Ginger, and our managers, the board of directors and staff, and then among the board of directors as well as a team. And so we have created a culture of caring where everyone knows that we all care about each other. No matter how new you are or how seasoned or how long you've been at Open Doors, or and however you show up as an organizational member, be you a partner, volunteer, program participant, etc.
Yeah, and for this part, I can share is that, the whole process really is thinking about how do we build capacity. And so basically we are making assumption that if you lack of knowledge or skills, we want to provide it to you. And once that is provided to you, if you have the right attitudes, you share the similar belief that we all believed, then we can continue to grow together. So there's attitudes that we might not be able to change. And what we also have seen is that if people don't change the attitude, or people are not willing to, or people who are not sharing the same values that we all created together, then as a result, we also kind of, if you want to say, screen out some of the people. And so there are kind of during this time, through this capacity building, we also see some of the staff left for different reasons. And at the same time, we also attract people who really invest in our vision, mission, and values. And very often throughout what we have learned, when we started to do the recruitment, the number one is always about our mission, vision, and values. And when people embrace that, then they realize, wow, this is different. And I'll tell you, pretty much every single staff who come to us after Dr. Knight started to work with us, when we recruit them, and at first I remember some of them, yeah, at an interview, would tell me a mission, vision, and values, so what? And because they're from their past experiences are always about, well, you just put at a table, kind of collecting dust. And so it doesn't matter, right? But once they come in, they realize, yeah, you really do what you say you are going to do. Because through Dr. Knight's challenge, I try to schedule my time to meet with every single staff. I tried. It's really, really hard. However, I tried. And every time I meet with someone, they will share with me, and then they will always let me know that this is different. This organization is very different from other organizations that I have been through in terms of you really practice what you are preaching. And I think that's how we bring people together, because then there is a willingness of learning. There is a self-reflections, and they are willing to really practice the tools like what Dr. Knight has shared with you earlier, that to engage in the critical conversation, and people can understand each other better. And we, as a leader in our organization, we focus on which team first. It's the executive team is number one. If this team is cohesive when we come together, then our message goes out to each individual team that is managed by managers. Then their team will be strengthened, and their team will not be different than the executive team as well. And that has been pretty successful in some way. And I see that our communication has become much more cohesive, more unison. The message goes out to the staff, has less confusion. I can give you one example. Like the executive team meets regularly every week to discuss any issues, and we would use the tool that Dr. Knight gave it to us. What she didn't say, there was another tool called Step Up and Assist. And that was step-by-step guidelines that we have to go through to talk about any issue comes up. And the person has to, any manager brought up that issue will have to share with everybody in terms of the impact on individual, in terms of impact on the team, their team, the organization, and then maybe even out to the community who we are serving. So it's very, the process takes much longer time. However, everybody was able to pitch in their idea, their thought, and that also through that step of the process to resolve the issue or come up with the recommendation for our decision making. We also were able to kind of remove personal feelings, because too often when managers are handling personnel issue, if you are a manager, you will know the nightmare is your staff when something is going on, right? and through this process, we were able to handle that. And if you are a staff, your nightmare is a manager doesn't know how to address your issue or not supporting you. But through this process, we were able to bring in, all the managers with different perspective. And believe it or not, we argue with each other, we debate with each other, we come up with different thoughts. Oh, have you thought about this? What do you think about this? And then we make that decision together. And because of that, then the message we go out to the staff to becomes easier for people to understand, because now it doesn't matter which manager they go to, it's the same. And we also put that into very often on paper at our staff meeting. So before our staff meeting, the managers meet on Monday, while our staff meeting is on Tuesday. So anything we are going to announce to the staff on Tuesday, we will all put it on the agenda and clearly, make sure the message is clear and who is going to deliver the message. So we all support each other. And if there's anything we didn't thought about and staff and me have questions, we're going to bring back a question. We don't want to answer it right away. For some of them, just to make sure that we are not providing misinformation. And staff now, they will know, doesn't matter who they go to, there is a same process to get the answer. And managers went through a lot of time to think about what we can do. So these are the things we have done, through all this capacity building activities. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as Ginger was sharing, and I want to share the excitement of people using the tools that Ginger and I had to laugh, I think, and her staff, because they were overusing the step up tool with some team members. And so again, it's just the eagerness to learn and to do. And now we've worked through it where staff is just doing, again, exceptionally well. And some of you might say, well, okay, we have these different type of structures. We use tools. We engage in critical conversations. The thing that's important to recognize here, like you'll see familiar organizational terms, is the way it was done. And it was done in the concept of equity. It was done like there was no one way in which we approach this per se. That if staff needed to reflect, they do this. If staff couldn't speak out, like use that step up tool and speak out right away amongst their colleagues, then they could come to me and do one-on-one. And then support was needed. Same thing, coaching. Like there was one manager who was trying to develop her capacity around confidence and being able to speak out and share. And once we had gone through a one-on-one training, she got an assignment to do. That manager now is just, again, who was once silent is now speaking out. And this is why, again, I just get so excited of how equity in action was actually taking place here. And let's see. And so successes. You want me to go ahead and continue, Ginger?
Yeah, you go ahead and I can
Okay.
chime in. Yeah.
Okay. And so successes is that we integrated an equity-driven approach throughout most of the operations. Like just about, again, anything that you see in the way that it's done, it reflects differences. And even with, let me just say, employee professional development and what the organization is about. And when we ran into different challenges, and when I say challenges about what should we do with a person who may not be performing up to par, or persons who are not performing up to par. When we talk about we built a climate of caring, you literally see it in practice. And so instead of separating employees from employment, we helped develop them, and we adjusted positions and had done different things because, again, we wanted to stay true to the mission, true to the vision, and true to our values. And so rather than just automatically getting rid of somebody or saying they're not going to work, we put processes in that were equitable throughout the whole operations, from what we required of hirees and to serve in different positions and so forth. We used concrete race equity approaches, resources, tools, and strategies. And then we made staff adjustments. So here's where the capacity really built. You got to remember, Ginger started this organization, one person out of her house. And then prior to the last couple of years, and Ginger can also expand on their fundraising efforts, that it was, again, just Ginger in the office, and then all the direct reports with a handful of managers. Ginger needed an assistant director. She needed an administrative assistant. She needed an HR person, and she needed additional managers to help and support the volume, the way that this organization had rapidly grown over time. And so by building capacity in the last few years, Ginger was able to get all of what she needed in just that little bit of time for the commitment that was done. And then there was technology and online database improvement. in a collaboration between the board and the management team, the executive team. And it was embracement and integration of various levels of expertise. And I have to say is that this was another huge success. There was the embracement of the managers where they were at once we started learning that we're all growing together. We've all came up under a rapidly growing organization, and these challenges that we're having are conducive to that. We realized that we had to embrace where everyone was at and each person's expertise. Ginger, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, and I think the very tangible success, Dr. Knight, you have been talking about is like last year during COVID-19, right?
Yes.
Not only that we did not lay off any staff, and only those who chose to leave the organization because they have family issues they have to take care of. We were able to provide a self-care like 2 hours a day for our staff. And
Yes.
that was a huge for many of the staff in this transitioning from working in the office to home, because many of our staff actually are parents like myself raising a child who has a disabilities. And because of that, they have to juggle with being a homeschool, being the parents who have to homeschool children. And among them, one will have disabilities or maybe two, right? And that is really challenging for our staff. And yet we see the growth. We were able to help. In addition to our regular funding, last year we received almost $1 million. And for that, about 80% of the funding went to serve families directly. Yeah. Provide rental assistance, provide food, everything you name it, like a cash vouchers or rent voucher or whatever. And our staff even go to the ethnic grocery stores to buy the food that is culturally relevant to many of the families we serve, right? So these are the evidence shows that staff get the rest, get the care. That's part of our value, self-care. And at the same time, they were able to dedicate their time and still very committed to the work they are doing. So it's just amazing to see that last year we probably increased more than 10 to 15 staff. Absolutely. And this year, between January to now, we have hired another 9 staff. So it just tells you so much growth, and yet I feel great about it. Not like panicking, say, "Well, what am I going to do now? I don't have a manager who who had challenges with this or that." So anyhow, it just in many ways we see that there is a great success because we are all together. Literally, I have a manager's support all these efforts and practicing and waiting to work with their team and access any support whenever they need, and we give it to them. So this is so good about because we come together to build these values, and we come together to share our voices, and people feel like I'm part of this, and I'm part of this big family, and it's important to me, and Absolutely. They are willing to really do whatever they can. I can't say good enough about the staff that we have. Every week I hear the story of how they help others, and I hear the story of how they praise their leader who helped them, or they praise their teammates who helped them. And it's not just only one team, like the youth team or adult team. No, it's a cross team collaboration. And this year, we also see that, through the equity in action, our strategic planning, our cross team, and everybody comes together to address how can we get enough funding to address the needs of the family, so we can always work within the with versus without the mentality. Absolutely. And then people come together to address the data issue. How do we use our data to share with others, with decision makers, and also among ourselves? while we are making decisions, and how do we
Mhm.
improve our online presence to reach out to more families. And so everything we do, it becomes a cross team because of our values, and we report back together, and we encourage everybody participation. So we are developing the leadership through this strategic planning and strategic goals this year. Like each of this strategic team that we have, staff will volunteer themselves to become the facilitator, to be the coordinator for the task force, and to be the timekeeper, and to be the observer to see how the meetings are going. And so we develop many different process and the structures in the way that we are able to develop the talent and also capitalize the talents from our staff and share with each other. So I think these are so much success. And of course, because it's successful within, then we see the impact outside as well for
Absolutely.
all the families we are serving and the youth we serve. And they just love the program they participated.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And expanding, like putting the exclamation point on what Ginger just shared, is during the time that this COVID, this unrest, racial unrest, the political, all of that stuff, is that ODMF soared. Staff and employees, organizational members received bonuses. They uh, received what do you call it, COVID release pay, like what Ginger was saying with self-care. And then instead of uh, laying off staff, staff was increased, staff was hiring. Like while the whole world's kind of laying off people, ODMF was hiring people. And most importantly, as Ginger shared, the services to program participants did not stop. It not only did it not stop, it increased, and it was profound. While typically developing families that had to be home with their children were expressing concerns with how taxing it was, ODMF was out there taking care of families in addition to their own families and doing what they were there, what we're there to do. And so just to put that exclamation point on that. And so the comment that came through the chat room was that Kaylin, and I apologize if I said your name incorrectly. This presentation is so powerful. I love the language of creating a culture of caring in your organization. I really appreciate how you're extended this to your staff and families throughout this pandemic. I appreciate to see how you trust your staff and give them the support they need so that they can show up fully to their work and their families. And yes, that's true. And so the impact, what happened, all of this stuff that we had done over the past 2.5 years, how did it impact the organization and the organizational members and the program participants? Was right away, like when I first started, and I have to chuckle about this, I was probably spending over maybe 20 hours or more a month meeting with staff one-on-one, because they were working out their challenges and they were their expressions of concern, to where now, right now, I'll be lucky if I meet with a staff person for, like, if I do 1 or 2 hours, I'll be lucky if that happens. And so and when I say lucky, it's just engaging with them, period, on a one-on-one. Now there's not much expressions. There's a decrease in expressed dissatisfaction, dedication, and happy staff. We excelled during a taxing time, as Ginger shared, with COVID-19. There's consistent practice across the board with upholding values. It's not happening in one department. It's not happening only with staff. It's happening with the board members. It's happening across the whole organization, and with the program participants that serve on the board. And then we got vulnerable leadership. Leadership doesn't have a problem saying, I'm sorry, or I'm still learning, or I made a mistake in this process, or praising their staff for what they're doing, or recognizing that they're learning along with their direct reports. Very vulnerable, cultural humility. And there's been an increase in staff confidence and development. I mean, it's just amazing. And then there's been an increase in intentional, strategic, equity-driven organizational activities. You know, how we show up at staff meetings, and everything else. And there's been improved people policies and practices. Is that all across the board? Ginger, you want to share anything else around impact?
Well, you name it very well. I
All
think
right.
I think we can leave because now it is
Okay.
closer to 3:20. So we
Oh,
want to
okay.
give them
We're gonna
time
move
if
to,
they want to ask more questions or
okay.
something.
Let me see how far. Okay, yeah, we're towards the end. Okay, great. So with challenges, at first, consistency, having consistency was a challenge, and then streamlining stuff. We had something going on in one department and not in another. Piecing funding together, that it I didn't come cheap. and but Ginger, well, and her management, her team, people were ready to put the money, the investment in it, and it paid off, for lack of a better way of saying it. Communicating effectively across cultures, there were challenges, and we still have slight challenges, but they're slight, not many. There are a few, and now we got there a collective ownership. Is that it was challenging getting people to buy in, and we lost several staff that have been there for a little bit, because people just were in different places. And then we have continuous new staff that are coming in the investment in the, excuse me, we had a revolving door of staff coming through at first, and now that's stopping. We're working on stopping that. We did a staff turnover report with the management team, and that became a critical conversation, looking at which department had the most, which positions were the most, et cetera, et cetera. And then staff development levels, is that on this developmental continuum, we had a lot of staff who were at the beginning stages of their position, like a lot of new managers, who have been in the management position for a long time. However, again, they didn't have the fundamentals of management. And those were some of the challenges. Ginger?
Yeah, I think if we want to talk about the challenges, we can talk for a long, long time. But I would say that these challenges, compared with the success, compared with the impact, it becomes minimal.
Yeah.
Becomes very, very minimal. And I would, I would say that the journey is worth it, even though look at the picture, it's kind of hard to push up to push up the huge ball. But I know the top on the top, and then have the ball roll over is really quick. If we, it really take the first step, to make the commitment. And I do appreciate what King County through Best Start for Kids, the funding for capacity building has made huge differences in our organization. And I truly appreciate this kind of efforts. So I wouldn't want to focus too much on the challenges, even though there are a lot. But yeah, we would like to see anybody else want to ask questions directly to Dr. Knight or me at this point. And can they just unmute themselves, Loris? Can they do that?
I think they should be able to.
Okay. So anyone want to ask questions?
And if you don't have any questions, you can feel free to comment on what you heard as well.
Okay, we have a comments here. What started Yolanda earlier, we didn't talk about, is a great presentation and
Okay.
slides. Thank you for sharing your work and the strategies for engaging all staff. And Lisa, are all your staff on salary versus hourly? I'll be concerned about full-time employees paid on hourly rate and the inequity it breaks on open income pandemic. Yeah, okay, so for this one, I want to share with you the hourly rate staff, they get 2 hours. Everybody gets the 2 hour pay
Self-care.
during self-care hours during pandemic up till recently when government move up to the next level, then we reduce to 1 hour, but we still, are providing this care hours, if you want to say that. I also, the other way we didn't talk about is when we do at open doors for multicultural families, from time to time we provide services based on what people pay us. So that's kind of fee for services. And when we do that for the hourly paid staff, whoever are assigned to that task based on their own capacity and the work nature, we increase $5 per hour in their hourly rate when they are performing, consider as not like their regular job requirement. And like managers, we also earn money through providing trainings or do some kind of technical assistant type of work. Then we have those, what we name it like a fee for services income. And so using those income, we actually put into the bonus pool, and everybody, even though they might not be in that work to earn the money, they still get the share of it through the bonus pool, the money, because we believe that everybody is contributing to the organization. So in one way or the other, everybody is benefited from the work we do it collectively. I hope that I answered the questions for that. And then Mona talks about, thank you for this presentation, so helpful to hear the steps you took and the examples. And then Nicole, thank you for sharing your expertise and leadership. So many takeaways to take back to our teams. Thank you so much for this informative thought for training. Thank you for your comment. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and Florida shares from ASC, I'm sold, I'm ready to work with and on and in your team.
Sure, if you want to join us, please contact us. From time to time, we actually have many openings. Yeah, right now we still have openings. And with COVID funding, we actually also want to hire 3 part-time staff as well. So anyway, anybody who is interested to come join us, please let us know.
Yeah, this is a very different organization in a very good way. And as this closing statement says, that striving to align every aspect of our work with our vision, mission, and values, open doors for multicultural families is equity in action. Is equity in action. Again, I close my statement with, this is one of the best organizations that I've seen in the business.
Okay, any other comments? We still got 5 minutes left. Maybe if you can tell us one thing you take away, type it up for us. I would appreciate that. So Dr. Knight and I, we know what your thoughts are, and thank you to those who have put in your comments. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for your participation today. Thank you. Let's see. So a lot of comments are coming through. Ginger, let's see.
I'd like to take care of it.
Okay.
Sort
let
of,
me see.
if you can see it.
Yeah, Marcella Taylor, which I think was Florida, she said, yes, thank you for sharing. And then Nicole, wait, I'm sorry, let me back up. Mona said that, thank you for this presentation, so helpful to hear and the steps you took and the examples. And then thank you for sharing, Nicole, and thank you for sharing your expertise and leadership. So many takeaways to take back to our teams. Thank you so very much for this informative, thoughtful training. And I shared that one. How can other organizations work with Sharon in creating an equity plan for their organizations? Just check in with Melanie Moultrie. Is that she makes things happen. Her and Michelle Sarju, is that there's several people up in BSK that can make things happen. I love the combination of strategy, systems, org development, and work in the personal support for the people in the mix through coaching, compassion. You did the work at all levels. Congrats. And that was Yvette sharing that. Vulnerable leadership as an impact is essential to creating an equitable work culture. Absolutely. And Caitlin said that. And then Yolanda, great leadership matters. Julie, it's possible to do this. It is possible to do this. Yes. So appreciate your example for all of us. And then Jen, turning around a toxic culture in the workplace is very possible. And then Sheila, phenomenal. Thank you. Powerful. And Hani, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Work is always better when you work with passionate and good people. Thank you all for those comments and sharing. And I think that, yeah, that's so true. It's definitely, thank you, Dr. Knight and Ginger, for sharing your experiences. I appreciated learning about how you align the team on the vision and values and centered equity, all the steps. And then there's thank yous going through the chat room.
Can I say something?
Yes,
Please
please.
do,
Okay.
please do.
So one thing that really stood out for me, not that everything else was wonderful, that when Ginger said, if you want to walk fast, walk alone, but if you want to walk far, walk together. That is deep
Yes.
for me. Like that really
Absolutely.
just says a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for
so
sharing
much.
that. Yeah.
By the way, I borrow somebody's words for that. It's just our experience align with that. I want to make
No,
sure.
I know.
I give the
And I
credits
had
to people.
I had to Google it and see, and get that and then change that to be my profile for today. That's really neat. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one last comment came through from Nicole. Again, I really appreciate hearing about the foundational work and training you did across staff to connect to the mission, vision, values, and how to constructively communicate across differences. And then how that makes so much other change easier down the road. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's
All right.
3:30 and we have spent the 90 minutes with you. We really appreciate it that you join us and give us this opportunity to share our journey with you. And I personally thank you, and for Dr. Knight's assistance for this past more than 2 years. It's just been great. It is so awesome. And I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. Yep, y'all welcome. Everybody have a great afternoon and a wonderful weekend.
Exactly.
You too.
All right.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.